All right, David, let's switch gears to that dreaded term that's almost like the dark villain in a movie, the polar vortex. There's just something about that phrase that seems to make people anxious. Can you explain exactly what it is in a way that we can all understand?
Yeah, well, Scott, it's like the word weather bomb or atmospheric river. It's like the witches of November, storms on the Great Lakes. I mean, these things drive fear in our hearts. We hide under the bed when we hear polar vortex. And so it's one of those, I think it's because of midnight shifts that meteorologists are always coming up with terms to scare the bejeebies out of us, I think. And hey, let's be straight though. Every cold air mass is not a polar vortex. I mean, Toronto can be frigid and Guelph could be, in a deep freeze. And it could just be Siberian air, Arctic air, or Yukon air, or what have you. Polar vortex is, yes, it's cold air. It tends to be intensely cold and it lasts quite a little while, but its process is very different than just other cold air. But we sort of say every time there's a cold wave, we think it's the polar vortex. It's been around since 1950, I remember hearing the word, but it really is, let me explain, sort of interesting, because it is at the high Arctic, at the top of the world, the North Pole, and also the South Pole, there's a vortex, a kind of a spinning top that in a counterclockwise direction, and it spins around there, around and around, and it is there in the summer, winter, spring, and fall. But in the winter, it's very strong, and it's surrounded by polar winds, strong jet stream winds, and it helps to confine it. It contains that cold air. And then occasionally, though, that spinning top, like a child's top, you poke it, and it kind of wiggles and wobbles and spills out. And then the polar vortex leaves home and goes southward, you say. And so that's really the difference. So when I hear the word strong polar vortex, it doesn't bother me. I know it's going to stay put. But when it weakens, then those walls of wind break down and it spills out, leaks out, looks like more of a balloon than a circular top. And so really what happens is that the stratosphere where jet aircraft fly, there's a little bit of cold air right down to the surface. And then occasionally what happens, there's warming. Now, guys, I'm talking about warming from minus 70 to minus 30. I mean, that's a 40-degree warming. And it's enough to nudge that, to kind of poke that polar vortex. And so that's what it does. It begins to get away from its circular vortex and spill out. And it takes all that cold air with it. So it leaves the Arctic and it goes right down to Tallahassee, Florida, without any change. And it's cold air. It's dense air. That's what cold air is. It just hugs the ground. It's like molasses flowing on the surface. And it brings all the cold air with it. And there's no mountain barriers going west to east to block it. It just has a free flow from the Arctic to the tropics. No, it doesn't check in at the border. There's no tariffs on it. It's just free air that just moves all the way down, and it brings its cold characteristics with it. So that's kind of what the polar vortex is.
That's the best explanation. Now I completely understand. Thank you for that, David. And it doesn't happen all the time, right? There are years go by where it doesn't.
This one is early. I mean, this is the earliest I've ever heard it in 70 years of hearing about this thing. This is the earliest. It typically, guys, it occurs in sort of the dead of winter, mid-January, February. So it really just adds to the coldness of the kind of winter we have. But the fact that this is early, I think it's added to the kind of fear about it. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, is this going to be the year of the polar vortex, you say? Non-stop cold, you say? And we've had so many warm winters that this would be, and we came out of the fall in southern Ontario that was really balmy. I mean, November turned a little cooler than it's normal, but September and October, we've had about 8 or 9 months of continued warm conditions. So we're not used to it. So this would be kind of a slap in the face when we get this kind of cold air if it does come true. No guarantee that it will. It could spill over to Europe. It could go over the western part of North America or the eastern part. And so there's no guarantee that it will arrive on our doorstep. But the models seem to suggest, hey, something's happening. There's this little warming that's occurring in the stratosphere. And so get ready for the polar vortex.
Mm-hmm. This may be a dumb question, David, but how soon do you know? Like, how far in advance will you be able to analyze, data and mapping and realize, okay, it is going to be a thing?
Well, Scott, that's interesting because you actually, this warming occurs probably, and then 3 weeks later, you start getting the cold. So all of this kind of process of the warming, pushing or touching that vortex, and then it's spilling out, takes about 3 weeks. So we first saw this about the almost the third, fourth week of November, just recently. And so the forecast is that we're going to get colder likely in mid December. So, you know, the fact that Toronto is going to warm up from like a plus 11 today to 1 tomorrow is not polar vortex. Even the fact that Winnipeg has had a temperature of about 10 degrees last week, or during, and they're going to be minus 14 for a high. So there's a difference of 25 degrees. That's not polar vortex even, but it's really a change. And so what we're saying is that I think the early start of winter might be cold because of the presence, the possibility, the added risk of having polar vortex air associated with the winter.
All right, dumb question number 2. We should keep track how many dumb questions we ask you, David. You're going to hang up on us soon. Are there some years where it skips us? There is no polar vortex?
Yeah. Oh, you're so right, Michael. I mean, it's not every year. I mean, you almost think it's every year because everybody says, well, it's another polar vortex. We're going to have a polar vortex on the weekend. Not, you know. I mean, hey, guys, we live in the second coldest country in the world. The snowiest country in the world. Is cold and snow is who we are. So, I mean, polar vortex is just, as they say, what I fear about it most, it's intensely cold, yes. But it's the duration of it. It's not just like a week of cold air. It can go on for 2 or 3 or 2 months or so. I remember the last one we had was noticeable was 2014. It turned out to be one of the coldest winters in recent years. And there were places that are traditionally cold, like Winnipeg. They had their coldest winter in over a century and a half. So it really does change the landscape. It changed the statistics. But as I say, I mean, this is just a kind of a threat on the horizon. This is not a done deal.